This week on Vaticano, relive the most beautiful moments of Mother Angelica's 100-year anniversary Mass in Rome's Santo Spirito Church. Learn about the shrine of Our Lady of Pompeii and Blessed Bartolo Longo. And find out about the important role Catholics played in the liberation of Italy from Nazi occupation and fascism. Vaticano starts now.
Cloistered nuns in television is without question one of the most ridiculous things that could have ever happened. It just evolved. When I went to Channel 38 in Chicago, I walked in that little tiny studio that I had never seen a TV studio before. We had already been publicizing books for a couple of years, reaching a lot of people. But I remember standing in the doorway and saying, it doesn't take much to reach the masses. And I said, Lord, I've got to have one of these.
This week marks the 100th anniversary of the birth of Mother Mary Angelica of the Annunciation, foundress of EWTN. It's been 7 years since she passed on March the 27th of 2016. Mother Angelica lived a remarkable life and was an inspiration to millions of people, becoming the first woman in the history of broadcasting to found and lead a television network. She did this at the same time that C-SPAN and CNN were getting off the ground. In Rome, the EWTN Vatican Bureau organized a solemn Mass for the 100th anniversary of the birth of Mother Angelica at Santo Spirito Church. Music was provided by the Cappella Ludovice, and Bishop Stephen J. Rica of Birmingham, Alabama, presided over the ceremony.
I have to confess right away that other than by reputation, I never had the occasion to meet her personally. I have met, however, so many who have been touched by her life and the ministry of EWTN Network that she founded, many of whom encountered Christ and are Christian because of her life and witness.
EWTN.
Mother Angelica's ministry lives on, and EWTN continues to grow, bringing the eternal word to the ends of the earth. Wednesday, April the 12th, at the shrine of Our Lady of the Rosary of Pompeii, the musical oratorio entitled ExultateT took place. It's a work composed by Marcello Bronzetti and directed by Tina Vazaturo, which follows the story of the first lay blessed belonging to the Equestrian Order of the Holy Sepulchre of Jerusalem, who was also the founder of the Shrine of Pompeii, Blessed Bartolo Longo.
The inspiration came in reality from a request that the Knights of the Holy Sepulchre made to me, to speak of the Holy Land and of Bartolo Longo. So I stepped into this mystery. I like to say that when I present these oratories, I always say that they are beautiful love stories, that they are the stories of God.
The Grand Master of the Equestrian Order of the Holy Sepulchre, Cardinal Fernando Filoni, and the Pontifical Delegate of the Shrine of Pompeii, Archbishop Tommaso Caputo, were also present at the musical oratory.
For me personally, what attracts me most about this figure, Bartolo Longo, is that he is a person who is seeking, as of course we are all seeking, and then also his attachment, his great devotion to Our Lady.
The musical piece followed the life of Blessed Bartolo Longo and his link to the Equestrian Order of the Holy Sepulchre of Jerusalem.
Hello and welcome to this week's Vaticano Updates, the most important news from Pope Francis and the Vatican. Speaking at his general audience, Pope Francis called for prayers for Yemen, a land that has been wounded for many years by a terrible, forgotten war which has caused so many deaths and still causes so many people to suffer, especially children. These were his words, and they came as a glimmer of hope was appearing on the horizon for the war-torn nation. Saudi Arabia has allowed over 100 detainees to return to the country, following simultaneous prisoner exchanges between Yemen's warring parties. Now, the country has been embroiled in a civil war since late 2014 when the Iran-backed Houthi militia stormed several northern cities and forced the Saudi-backed Yemeni government out of the capital of Sana'a. One of Asia's most senior Catholic clerics is meeting officials in Beijing as a deal between the Vatican and China over the Church's role in the communist states appears to be fraying. Now, Bishop Stephen Chow San-Yan, the top Catholic cleric in Hong Kong, will be the first senior church official from the Chinese territory to visit Beijing since 1994. Now, the visit, which follows an invitation last year from his counterpart in the Chinese capital, comes after Beijing this month unilaterally appointed a new bishop in Shanghai. Now, this appointment is a breach of a 2018 deal between the Vatican and Beijing. The director of the Holy See Press Office, Matteo Bruni, confirmed that the Holy See earlier this week donated relics of the True Cross to Charles III, the Supreme Governor of the Church of England, as an ecumenical gesture. Now, the gift consisted of 2 small wooden fragments of the cross on which, according to Christian tradition, Jesus was crucified. Now, preserved in the Vatican, the precious relics were delivered in recent days to the Royal Chapel of St. James in London. India is set to surpass China as the world's most populous nation, with almost 3 million more people by the middle of this year. Now, based on the projections, India's population by mid-year will reach 1.4286 billion, compared to China's 1.4257 billion, or 2.9 million fewer. United Nations officials have said it is not possible to determine the exact date for the shift due to the uncertainty about the data coming from China and India. With 24 million followers, Christianity is India's 3rd largest religion after Hinduism and Islam, in a population of 1.3 billion people. Now, Catholics number 20 million, representing around 1.5% of the total population, and the Catholic Church is the single largest Christian church in India. Archbishop Vincenzo Paglia, president of the Pontifical Academy for Life, has spoken in support of legalized medically assisted suicide, calling it feasible despite the clear teachings of the Catholic Church against it. Now, according to the Catechism of the Catholic Church, intentional euthanasia, whatever its forms or motives, is murder. Now, the Pontifical Academy for Life clarified on Monday that its president is against assisted suicide, but thinks it is possible to have a legal initiative that would allow it to be decriminalized in Italy under specific and particular conditions. Thank you for watching this week's Vaticano Updates. Benjamin Crockett for EWTN Vaticano.
In a few moments, we'll be back with more on Vaticano. The Apostle of the Rosary. That's how Pope St. John Paul II described Blessed Bartolo Longo, founder and benefactor of the famous Shrine of Our Lady of the Rosary of Pompeii. This year, the shrine is celebrating the 150-year jubilee of the arrival of Blessed Bartolo in the Valley of Pompeii.
Ecco, ritornare all'esperienza di Bartolo Longo a distanza di 150 anni.
To return to the experience of Bartolo Longo 150 years later has a profound meaning. It's that of reawakening the enthusiasm, that dormant enthusiasm of finding once more the zeal of investing in hope. Bartolo Longo didn't leave things how they were. His arrival in the Valley of Pompeii in October of 1872 wasn't planned. It happened by the will of God, because God places men in history and seeks situations that will bring about a new beginning.
Che porteranno ad un nuovo inizio.
The new beginning for Blessed Bartolo Longo was marked by his conversion back to the Catholic faith, a faith that in the 1860s he had abandoned during his university years in Naples. Under the influence of friends and professors, he had fallen into the world of Spiritism and the occult, adhering as well to the anti-clericalism so common in Italy, during those years.
Bartolo Longo è stato un profeta.
Bartolo Longo was a prophet. He is, for us, a prophetic figure, an anticipator of the times. We read about his life, his writings, and we realize that there we can find so many useful examples also for our existence. Today, we are experiencing so many crises. I'm thinking of the dozens of conflicts in the world, the violence that appears to dominate social and even family relations, the indifference towards the suffering of the most fragile. Bartolo Longo was an anticipator, a prophet of non-discrimination, of inclusion. But Bartolo Longo also lived in difficult times, and he confronted them with the strength of his faith and hope in his heart.
E li affrontò con la forza della fede e la speranza nel cuore.
Bartolo Longo reacquired that faith and hope thanks to the spiritual direction of a Dominican, Father Alberto Radente. Due to his encounter with the order of preachers, the Dominicans, the future blessed matured in his Marian devotion and his prayer of the Rosary. In 1871, Bartolo became a Third Order Dominican.
Possiamo dire che nel Rosario
We can say that in the Rosary, with every Hail Mary, Bartolo Longo had in his heart the full confirmation that he was on the right path. Without the Rosary, there would have never been May 8th, 1876, when the first stone of our shrine was placed. Without the Rosary, there wouldn't have been May 8th, 1887, when the painting of Our Lady was crowned. Without the Rosary, there would not have been built a new city that was then established as a civil municipality in 1928.
nel 1928.
The arrival of Blessed Bartolo Longo in the Valley of Pompeii took place in 1872. He came to Pompeii to take care of some business affairs for the Countess Mariana Farnanaro de Fusco, who possessed a large part of the Pompeian estates. And it was precisely here, while he was walking in the Pompeian fields, that Bartolo Longo heard a mysterious voice that told him, "If you propagate the Rosary, you will be saved."
È qui che sentì una voce
And here he heard a voice that suggested that he spread the Rosary, a promise from Mary. He heard her say in his heart, "He who propagates the Rosary is saved." And from that intuition, from the spark, were born the shrine and the works of charity, and a city arose around the shrine and the works of charity, the new city of Pompeii. And that moment, 150 years ago, became history, and it is the story that we're living today.
ed è la storia che noi viviamo ancora oggi.
And here in a valley that at that time had around 1,000 inhabitants, Bartolo Longo founded the Shrine of Our Lady of the Rosary of Pompeii.
Quando Bartolo Longo giunse
When Bartolo Longo arrived in October of 1872 in the Valley of Pompeii, he heard that interior inspiration. If you seek salvation, propagate the Rosary. It's Mary's promise. Whoever propagates the Rosary is saved. The young Longo who arrived here at Pompeii was a man like us. Certainly he didn't fully comprehend the meaning of those words, but his heart told him that that was the will of God. And he didn't do anything but put it into practice, as the Virgin Mary did, and he promised to stay in Pompeii to propagate the Rosary.
stare a Pompei per propagare il Rosario.
Bartolo Longo was beatified by St. John Paul II in 1980, becoming the first layperson belonging to the Equestrian Order of the Holy Sepulchre of Jerusalem to be beatified. In Italy on April the 25th, Liberation Day is celebrated. It's the annual occasion to commemorate the end of the Nazi-fascist occupation of the country. With the March 2020 opening of the Vatican archives regarding the pontificate of Pius XII, we can now, as never before, take a close look at the role Catholics had during Italy's so-called resistance. To do so, we reached out to Dr. Andrea Ciampani, professor of modern history at Rome's LUMSA University.
Professor Ciampani.
Dr. Ciampani, what new perspectives does the access to the letters of the archive of the Pontificate of Pius XII open up about the role of the Catholics during the Renaissance to Nazi fascism?
You might say that the imposing amount of documentation available to historians today allows us to rethink, to reread many of the accepted interpretations about the role of Catholics in the period of the Resistance, and in particular in Rome from 1943 and 1944. Now, certainly, the analysis that emerges from the papers must be completed on multiple levels. There is the Holy See, the Catholic Church, organizations of Catholics, Catholic action in its diverse articulations, and the Catholic laity in a more general sense. Now, what emerges most of all is a church that was very committed in this time period to the support of and solidarity with those persecuted by Nazi fascism.
Per I perseguitati dal nazifascismo.
Quando si parla di resistenza, subito
When the Renaissance is spoken of, we think right away about the weapons taken up by the partigiani. Could we say that for Catholics, participating in the Italian Renaissance especially meant a moral involvement?
coinvolgimento morale.
Innanzitutto bisogna affrontare la questione degli spazi organizzativi.
First of all, one must confront the issue of the organizational spaces that the Catholic Church obtained through the Lateran Pacts and a latent conflict with the totalitarian aspirations of fascism. In this sense, before the impossibility of a political representation, the action of Catholics was carried out in the emphasis of the moral dimension of their initiatives as a dimension of otherness and of distinction from the public models of fascism, and the morality as the center of the action of Catholics. On the other hand, following the magisterium in the Pontificate of Pius XII, Catholics were dedicated to reflecting on the issue of social justice.
Riflettere sulla questione della giustizia sociale.
Professor, in what way did the Church and Catholics experience the Renaissance alongside the diversive political components like the socialists, communists and liberals?
Comunisti e liberali.
Innanzitutto, quando per esempio a Roma iniziò.
First of all, when, for example, in Rome, the resistance began after the 9th of September, the National Liberation Committee was constituted. Catholics lived the participation and the moral and political commitment to the resistance with great solidarity. They did so often encouraged and supported by the Holy See. From the papers of the archive emerge hundreds of initiatives from the Holy See for the assistance of the population, for refugee assistance, for the informing about and mediating for the liberation of those arrested by the Germans and the fascist police. This work of solidarity knew no borders. They were addressed certainly to the Catholic components. Many were the Catholics arrested and persecuted, and even some priests were killed, as is known, but there was also components of the liberal world, the socialist world, and the communist world.
Ma anche esponenti del mondo liberale, del mondo socialista, del mondo comunista.
Professore, un'ultima domanda.
Doctor, a final question. Is it possible, in your opinion, to form some sort of Catholic identity in the fight for liberation?
Di liberazione.
E certamente ci fu anche un apporto della partecipazione individuale dei cattolici.
Certainly there was also a contribution of the individual participation of Catholics in the liberation phase, which had many and diverse forms of engagement. The resistance of Christian partigiani, the civil resistance, nonviolent resistance. It was this way the Catholics participated that also influenced the debate after the war. Between 43 and 44, forms of a presence of Christian political parties began to be discussed, and this especially influenced the debate regarding the birth of Christian democracy, which is a national party that rose up precisely to welcome those moral aspirations of social justice, liberty, and patriotism that had animated the resistance. In this sense, it's also important to underscore that the Christian Democracy Party, guided by Alcide de Gasperi, Catholics finally achieved the aspiration that in the 1800s had brought them to reflect on the possibility of leading our nation.
Sulla possibilità di guidare il nostro paese.
Grazie mille, professore.
Thank you, Professor.
We'll be back after a short break with more on Vaticano. How does one prepare for the priesthood in the modern world? What can studying in Rome teach you that no other place can? For the next few weeks, we'll be spending some time with seminarians from the Pontifical North American College in Rome as they bring us into their world.
So we've been doing the homeless outreach trip for the last 6 months or so, and it's a great practice of sharing our humanity with whom we find on the streets, and you never know who will be put in front of us on a given day.
We're gonna go this way through this arcade. Maybe you can get shots from there.
Just the other day when we were doing the filming for this documentary, it was a real day of ministry on the street. We had a few difficult encounters that were not as peaceful as some are, and we had some great interactions too. And you never know how it's going to go.
Carissimi, è stato un attimo.
Ciao.
Dove sei stato?
In giro.
In giro? Sempre in giro.
In giro.
Bene.
Giro da fare tanto.
Bene, bene. Ehi, noi compriamo un panino per condividere. Vuoi un panino? Hai fatto pranzo ancora?
The apostolate grew out of a placeholder. We did an apostolic work in one of the hospitals of Rome, but with COVID and with the change in management, we needed to shift to a different apostolate. We enjoyed it so much, and it was a success, so we decided to keep it. And mostly around St. Peter's Square, we go.
Let's ask her really quick.
Rosa! Ciao bello!
Ciao, come stai?
Bene, tu?
Come la gamba?
Meglio.
Come la gamba della sciatica?
Sì, va meglio.
Abbastanza, abbastanza.
Sì.
Ok, bene. Bene. E possiamo comprare un caffè?
Sì.
Ok, ma ti caffeinato?
Decaffeinato.
Ti caffeinato sempre. Ecco a sinistra tua, vedi? Vedi?
One of the other great factors of the apostolate has been adjusting our approach according to each person. It's not a one-size-fits-all type apostolate because everybody that we meet is in a different place. One lady that we met was really interested in theology and reading, so we found her some books to read. And we would talk about them with her the next time we saw her. What do you think about the books and things like that?
I'm gonna go buy a coffee. Yeah, you guys wanna come? You guys doing all right with this guy? So Rosa, and the guy. But the guy's getting a little bit testy, you know. Jacob, be with Brian, maybe with the guy. Yeah. And then I'll just have a sip of this with Rosa and then go. Yeah.
The approach is sharing our humanity with the people of the streets of Rome. That's one of the main focuses and one of the main gifts that the apostolate has been. A shared experience connects you with somebody more than simply giving them a coffee or serving them a meal, which are both obviously good things to do. But we saw that these people oftentimes were alone. And they didn't have, don't have friends or family that they see every day, and we were able to be a kind of a somewhat regular presence, the listening ear and the eye contact. I can share it in some way.
Sì, tutto a posto. Ma la settimana scorsa è venuto mio padre a Roma. E lui veniva con noi alla strada abbiamo incontrato Cristiano e Zolli con mio padre. È stato un piacere per lui conoscere i miei amici come voi.
And what I have met in the church, in the gospel, I can share it in some way with them. Just eye contact, a 5-minute conversation about anything.
Ciao Cristiano, alla prossima. Ciao.
I remember when I was discerning, it was not an individual event that took place in my life, but it was something that took place through the relationships that I had.
My soul, my Savior, God to me. How great thou
I think often God works in this way, like the call comes through the reality of our lives, of the people He's put into our lives, the situations of our lives. And the call comes through that.
Shine until tomorrow, let it be.
And through our desires, the desires in our heart that react to everything that's going on in our lives.
Ti ricordi della frase, le frasi inglesi? Have a nice day.
Have a nice day.
It's a beautiful day.
It's a beautiful day.